Someone in my Discord said something about, should we learn multi-slots, like learn all the cases for every single pair when like both pieces are in the top layer? And it reminded me that I've been meaning to make a video talking about how you can learn every single multi-slot and the methodology I use to teach people how to do this. In my head, the most important thing about learning multi-slots is just recognizing the patterns. Typically when I was coming up, I did this just by like experimenting. I think the Chinese solvers have like actual documents of some of these things, or maybe they kind of just learn these through trial and error, but I'll show you a way to learn multi-slots that maybe you wouldn't necessarily know, and how to catch just multi-slots from the get-go. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and let's hop right into it. First thing we need to understand is all of the basic triggers that make up our F2L. I'm going to talk about these more extensively as how they relate to look ahead in another video. I've been meaning to make a no nonsense look ahead tutorial. However, I'll just show you in this video, and hopefully if you have questions, just let me know. So there's three main triggers that make up all of F2L. That's going to be RU prime R prime, RU R prime, and RU2 R prime. Now I'm going to set up the base case of this trigger on a solved cube. What this means is that whenever I do the solution for this trigger, it's going to solve the whole cube. So we can use the absolute position of these pieces to tell us what exactly happens every single time we do one of these triggers. Now there's going to be one common thread between all three of these. That's going to be that this bar here stays preserved. For here, RU prime R prime, like I said, this stays preserved here. So these pieces are in the correct spot. They're not going to move. We see here that this chunk of pieces is all correct relative to each other, but they're not in the correct absolute position. So I know that when I insert this pair, these three pieces are just going to do a U prime. On top of this, there's going to be this 1x2 here. So these two pieces are relative to each other. And these are the pieces that actually replace these and do the U prime. So these are going to go to the back here. And then last thing is that this corner is just going to do an F prime. So it's going to end up in this orientation right above this slot. The other trigger is RU R prime. So it's pretty similar characteristics. Like I said, this at the back stays preserved. We still have this block, except now, instead of it doing a U prime, it's going to do a U because we are doing a U move for this solution. And then here, what's actually in this slot is going to stay preserved as opposed to our U prime R prime, where we see that these pieces in the slot actually are not relative to each other. So they're going to get mismatched. Here we see these are going to stay connected, and these are going to be the pieces that do the U move to move this block over. Last thing is going to be this corner at the back left. It'll end up over this front right slot, and it will do a left twist of its orientation. So it'll be facing upwards if it's facing to the left. Last one here that's a little bit different is RU2 R prime. So here, like I said, this stays preserved. The tricky part here is that these edges just do a U2. So whatever's at the front is going to go to the back. Whatever's at the back is going to go to the front. We have this whole 1x3, and these pieces are all relative to each other. So this 1x3 is going to end up in this spot here. RU2 R prime is going to insert this pair. And then the last thing is that this corner is going to, again, do a left turn, and it's going to end up over this front right slot. You want to make sure that you have a really comfortable and intuitive understanding of all of these different triggers, because doing this is going to enable us to alter which insert we do depending on which multi-slots we're going to get. Yo, I'm editing and I forgot to mention this. Make sure that you look at the base cases in every single slot, because you probably will get an understanding just intuitively over time, but it's a lot easier if you look at it not only in the front right, but the front left, and back right. I forgot to mention that, but do that to make sure you're comfortable with all of them. Now that you've seen all of the base triggers, we're going to extend these into our base multi-slot cases. These are going to be what we reduce down to pretty much every single time whenever we're getting a free pair. The way that we would do this, and you can do this for literally every single pair, and we'll talk about that later, but looking at the base multi-slot cases, you want to set up all manner of three movers in every single slot and in every U move alignment. So for example here, I'm going to set up a free pair in my front left slot, and it's going to be a connected one. And now I'm going to look at all of the multi-slot patterns that I get when I insert a made pair. For example, here, if I have a made pair and I have this F12 pair on top of it, I know that I'm going to get a made pair because, as we saw, we just had one. So RU prime R prime makes this pair. This is a pattern you want to learn. Now we'll do this alignment whenever we have the pair at this U move positioning as well. So here, like I said, this is just going to stay preserved, so this pair already exists. Here is the other one, so whenever we insert this, this pair gets taken out and it's in the top layer, it'll end up back here. And again, we know this is going to be in that chunk at the back here, and it's going to stay preserved. Now we can do this for the other types of three movers that we'll get. So this is going to be RU R prime, and again, we can go through all of the cases when we have a made pair. So this is a multi-slot pattern to learn. This is a multi-slot pattern to learn. This is a multi-slot pattern to learn, and this is a multi-slot pattern to learn. Then we want to do this for our U2 alignments. So take out this pair with U2, whenever we insert this, this is a multi-slot pattern to learn. This is a multi-slot pattern to learn. Here you could just insert this pair, but it's also good to know that you can do RU to R prime for this pair as well. Here's another one, RU to R prime. We know that this is going to give us a free pair. And this is the last one, RU to R prime gives us a free pair. Now you want to do this in every single slot. So again, I can look at this at the back left and do the same type of process. Here, insert, 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 etc. Repeat this process for every single pair in every single slot with all types of U-move alignments, and you will learn all of the base multi-slot cases. So the way that this actually applies practically is if I'm doing, let's say I know I'm going to get a free pair here, and I'm going to set up an RU to R prime solution. Let's say I know I have this free pair here. You would just typically do RU prime R prime, but then you're going to get this pair instead. If we know that we have this pattern and we've learned it and we're comfortable with it, then we can option select to do RU to R prime, and now we get a free pair instead. Once you've learned all of these base multi-slot cases, you can extend these into 2 triggers into a free pair. For example, for that same pair we just had, this is the base multi-slot case where it's 1 trigger into a free pair. However, we're not always going to get free pairs here. So let's say I had something like this. This is my setup. This pair is 1 trigger away from being to a base multi-slot case, but if I just do the standard insert here, I'm not going to get that free pair. So what I would want to do instead is, this is where our level of prediction comes in. This is why you need to be comfortable with those standard 3-move triggers. I know that when I do RUR prime, I'm going to get this edge in the top layer, this corner in the bottom layer, and then I can option select into this U2 insert instead to get that free pair. We can extend this even further into 3 trigger pairs and even some non-intuitive F2L pairs. For example, let's say I want to see all the multi-slots that I can get on this F2L pair. There's multiple different solutions that we can do for this. So we want to set up the inverse of all of the different types of ways we could solve this pair. So that way we get as many multi-slots as possible. For example, here, I know that it's going to flip this edge and this edge. So let's say I have a pair here. This is a multi-slot case. I know that when I do this pair here, these pieces don't really move, and it sets up to this base multi-slot. Here, this is a situation where I know that if I do the standard solution that I just showed you here, it's not going to set up the pair. However, if I do an alternate pair solution here, I know that if I do RUR prime, it's going to split these up. Sledge is going to pair this up, and now I've reduced down to, again, the same base multi-slot. All this technique is really getting you to do is learn the patterns of the multi-slots, and then the idea is that once you're aware of them, you need to start option selecting accordingly. So you would run through these in untimed or very slow turning solves and see if you can option select just based between doing either the standard insert or the U2 insert. That's where I would recommend most people start. And then once you're there, you can start catching that from 2 triggers away rather than just 1. And then you can apply this to all manner of F2L pairs. Again, make sure you're doing these types of multi-slots even in this type of situation. For example, here, if I had this pair, I probably wouldn't catch this multi-slot. But since I know that I have a free pair that exists here, if I just do the standard solution for this pair, hopefully I'll catch that in the future. Let me know if this all makes sense. It's kind of a very complicated idea, but I've been meaning to make this video. I told Maddie and Nam I'd make this video forever ago. So if you're curious about improving your F2L, you can always get coaching from me at solvewithdylan.com. I do coaching, $50 an hour. Send me an email, book a session, and hopefully we will help you improve. And I'll be posting more videos with these types of tricks and tips that maybe aren't super relevant. So thank you. Have a good one.